From EPAWA Weather Consulting, headquartered in Worth Whitehall, Pennsylvania, this is Weather Weeklies, an informative video of the ins and outs of weather that affect you most in the EPAWA coverage area. The thoughts and opinions expressed in this video are those of the forecaster alone and may not reflect those of the staff of EPAWA Weather Consulting LLC as a whole, nor its constituents. Now, without further ado, here is meteorologist Bobby Martrich with Weather Weeklies.
And good Sunday morning to you. It is November 24th, another edition of Weather Weeklies, which happens every Sunday throughout the winter season. And we're starting to get into that season now where winter starts meaning something, not just a thought or you know, something about maybe down the line. This is the time we're getting past. This is Thanksgiving week, so I've always felt in a normal, quote unquote, normal winter. Thanksgiving starts the notable threats where it's a legitimate threat for snow starts coming into play after Thanksgiving, and that's this week. So I think we're not going to be dealing with it just yet. Now, some of you are actually dealing with it this morning. The interior locations had a very normal November. Okay, some of you are getting snow and accumulating snow at that, but for the most part, we are very close to what is considered a normal November. I think it's going to pick up here as we get into the month of December. Here's our long-range chart for Friday. I don't want to spend too much time on it just because it's pretty self-explanatory as far as the up and down temperatures here that we're expecting over the next week to 10 days or so. I think there's going to be a storm right around the 1st and 2nd of December. All right, and once that moves through, after that point is when we start getting into more consistently at least slightly below average temperatures. But you got to remember, average temperatures, the word average is relative. Okay, it's continuing to drop. And slightly below average in December on December, say, 3rd does not mean the same thing as slightly below average on November 3rd or January 3rd. They all have different meanings. And I'll show you what that is here in a second. But one of the biggest changes we have here in this outlook is we now have a winter storm signal outline between the 5th and the 9th. And it's not to say that that system on the 1st and 2nd can't produce any wintry weather. I think there will be some mixing involved with that for some areas. Maybe the same areas are getting it now. Interior, central PA, northeast PA. Could be some mixing involved with that. Maybe ending as a little bit of snow like you're seeing this morning. But I think your true legitimate threats are beyond that, beyond September 2nd. So we're going to get into that. We have that winter storm signal outlined the 5th, the 9th. I'll show you that here. And we also changed the projections for the month to slightly below average temperatures, slightly above average snowfall. So this is the opposite of what the Climate Prediction Center has. They have us in above average temperatures. I don't think so. That's going to be tough to verify above average temperatures in December for most of our, if not all of our region. Here is the projection for snowfall. I just want to touch on that we have now slightly above average snowfall for the month of December. Here is this morning. This is the high resolution rapid refresh, and I posted this on the Facebook page before, of course, I did the video. Here is a cold conveyor belt, this is called, on the backside of departing low. So there's low pressure moving away. It's dragging in cold air on the backside of this, and you get a cold conveyor belt that's cold on the backside, so you get some snow that comes into those regions as this pulls away. So basically, the areas we're looking at seeing that snow this morning are generally in here. Okay, this is your, well, this wasn't a straight line. Generally in this corridor here, although further south and east as this pulls away, you're going to have some mixing with rain changing to snow this morning. Might even briefly, I might mix with it, and that's it, and just mix with snowflakes, but it could also change to snow completely. I just don't expect too much accumulations outside of this corridor here, which we're seeing this morning. Okay, so that's just on the backside of the low. That's out of here by early afternoon at the latest. Let's examine the temperature periods going forward now. Right before Thanksgiving, actually Tuesday, Wednesday especially, are going to be well into the 50s, and we're going to have a milder stretch coming here. Might even get above 50 on Monday in some locations, but I think it's really kind of like mid to upper 50s to near 60 or in the Tuesday, Wednesday timeframe this week ahead of the cold front. So you're going to have a warmer period in there, followed by slightly below average temperatures for a couple of days. And it looks like another warm spell is coming in here as it's building into the plains. But as this works its way eastward, it kind of gets squashed further south and east. And we're kind of near average here in that December 1st, December 2nd time frame. So because of that, because we're near average, and then we have a system to coincide with that, I think you're going to be kind of marginal with the temperatures just yet. All right, this time of year, if you're going to get snow, you still need near average isn't going to cut it because you're still a little bit too high in what the average temperatures are. Not by much, but it's a little bit too high. You want it at least slightly below average temperatures or colder. All right, and so it's going to be a timing thing with this. We'll keep an eye on it. I'm not saying dismissing any wintry possibilities, as I've discussed with that system. I think your better chance for winter systems are coming after that. And here is a look at that first week of December after that system moves by, and you can see much colder temperatures here settling in, and it looks like it's going to stick around for a little bit. I keep talking about what relative to average. This is what average is. Okay, so here's November 30th, and what average highs at these 6 locations are. So average highs and lows. You can see as it drops off, as you go from November 30th to December 15th, it's dropping off about 6 degrees here on the average high. So it goes down pretty fast, like a degree every 3 days or thereabout. Okay, and then once you get to December 30th, it drops off even further, another 3 degrees. So another degree every 5 days. All right, so it's going to drop off. Definitely dropping off here. It's just and this is what average highs are this at each time block here. November 30th, December 15th, December 30th. So when you look at something like this, you have to remember it's relative to that time of year. If I'm looking at this, and this is the period between December. This is actually December 5th. We're looking at December 5th, and it's showing these slightly below average temperatures. And you look on here. Well, December 5th falls between November 30th and December 15th. So you pick one place out here in Harrisburg. You're probably about halfway between that. So about 44 is a normal high. Okay, it doesn't mean it's going to be 44 necessarily. You look at how far below average it is. Maybe it's like 5-6 degrees below average. All right, so you could be in the 30s. 30s for highs. All right, and if you get a storm system in the vicinity when it's cloudy and the temperatures can't rise very much, you could have some snow. Just saying. So there's that. Here's our current ENSO. This is the measure of whether we have an El Nino or a La Nina or a La Nada, which is the neutral phase, and I think we're still sticking in the La Nada stuff now. We're going to have to see some changes. Last week, we showed the temperatures in the equatorial Eastern Pacific drop. This week, it went up slightly by about the same margin. It was unchanged in MEA 1 and 2, which is the coldest region to begin with. But it did rise a little bit by 0.2, 0.3-ish in the western regions and central regions. So they're going to have some fluctuation week to week. It went up last week. I guarantee it's going down this week because I've already seen the preliminaries for that. So you're going to see some ups and downs with the temperatures here, but the whole bottom line here is this region right here is warmer, which is the central regions. As you get in the far eastern areas not pictured, closer to the Peruvian coast, you are colder. Taking into account the entire region, the entire basin as a whole, you are technically ENSO neutral, which are neither an El Nino or a La Nina. So I hear a lot of people saying, people aren't there saying we're having an El Nino yet. In these specific regions, Nino 4, 3.4, yes. Yes, there. But that's you have to account for the entire basin as a whole, which is it goes actually past this point, all the way to the Peruvian coast, and that is below average. If you factor everything together, you're not just worried about 3.4 or 3 or 4. You're worried about the entire basin as a whole to come up with your climate projections. And people get too caught up in that. I don't know why. I don't understand it. Either way, we have an ENSO neutral winter projection, and that should continue. I don't see any reason why it will not be on the positive side of neutral, and that looks like it's going to continue. What do we get in neutral winters, though? This is an interesting graphic from, actually, the Weather Channel. Put this out on their website, and they made it available, so I took it and pasted it here in the slide. Here is what we have typically in a ENSO neutral winter pattern, different from an El Nino and La Nina. Okay, it typically features in the upper Midwest, Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, Northeast, Mid-Atlantic. We have colder than average temperatures in the northern part of the jet streams cutting down like this. Okay, and then you still have the subtropical jet bringing all this moisture in along the southern United States, and warm in the Pacific Southwest, okay, or in the southwestern United States. So that's what a typical winter is. Now, there's going to be some variability to this. This is not going to be the entire winter. This does not mean, December through March. It's going to look just like this. You're going to have some jet stream variability. You're going to have different tracks of systems. It's going to change things around. Doesn't mean you can't get rain systems. We certainly can. But you're going to have predominantly the pattern's going to be colder than average, and I think that's what we're going with going forward. This looks a lot like, if you look at this dip in the jet stream here, right, like this. Looks a lot like this here, with it, which is an EPO-driven cold. And I think this is going to be a very common theme. Very common theme. You're going to be hearing me talk about this EPO a lot, to the point where you're going to be sick of hearing about it. Okay? It's going to be one of those things where the EPO, I think, dominates this winter, at the very least, the early part of winter. Still some questions how long it lasts, but you get some ridging up into Alaska, and it affects the jet stream. It forces the jet stream up across Siberia. You get a cross-polar flow. So your cold air is not only coming across coming from the Arctic regions, like it does with a polar vortex displacement, or split. It's coming from the Siberian regions, where it's your cold too, and goes right across the pole. It's called a cross-polar flow, and it goes right across Canada and down, and it bleeds down in the United States. So that's what an EPO does. That's what it can do for you. Okay, and look at the Euro Ensemble projection for the EPO. Oh, wow. Stays negative here post-Thanksgiving. And then once we get past December 2nd, December 3rd, remember when I said we're going to get cold and we're going to stay cold? Well, look at the EPO. Tanks. Okay, so you want to talk about storm signal? Right in here. Right in there. And you can even throw in the North Atlantic Oscillation, which is still projected to rise around that period. A lot of times when you get a rising NAO at the same time, when you have a negative EPO, you get a storm signal right in here. And this falls under a storm signal period of December 6th through 5th through 9th, I think I have it. So I'm watching that period very closely. We haven't talked about the Madden-Julian Oscillation very much, and that's because there's been in a very low state and hasn't really been affecting the pattern. There's been other drivers affecting the pattern. But it is kind of hanging around here, around phase 1, phase 2. Next week or so, it should go into the circle of death, and then everything has it coming back toward the colder phases of phase 1. You see phase 1 looks like this. This looks like a lot like what the week ahead is going to look like. So you wonder why it looks like this. This has a part in it too. It's not just the EPO. All these things work in tandem. So you can't point to one thing and say, oh, the NAO is negative, we're going to get a big storm. It doesn't work like that. You have to have everything working in tandem. And I get people saying questions yesterday about the Arctic Oscillation being so positive. How are you going to get all this cold? EPO. Okay? There's other factors that can get you cold air. It's not just one thing. And if you have the cold air in place, whether there's a storm or not, you're at least giving yourself a chance for it to be wintry. You got to have that part first, okay? Once you have the cold air in place, you take your chances. Could it be cold and dry? Sure. Do I think it will be? No. So I think once you get past, past the 5th or thereabout, you're going to start getting some more chances coming in here, okay? And this, even though it's a weak signal, weak MJO signal, it's still hanging out in the favorable phases for cold. As we head into, now phase 2 is not as cold, so you see phase 7, phase 8, phase 1 all blue, so that's temperatures that are colder than average. Phase 2 is kind of like near average. Alright, so that's this week, and this week it goes up till just past Thanksgiving. It goes back into phase 1 and it'll start looking like this. Once we get into December, phase 2 is also a colder signal. We're not there yet. We get close. Not there yet. All right, so we've also been hearing chatter about the sudden stratospheric warming going on up here. Now, these are take with a grain of salt. Okay, now this is a very good signal. You got one of the European model on the left, you got the GFS Ensemble on the right. Okay, they both agree that there's going to be a displacement of the stratospheric polar vortex. Both agree. It's unanimous. The question is, how does it interact with the troposphere? And does it how does it propagate down well, or whatever you want to call it, propagate downward toward the troposphere where we live? It gets the tropopause, and interacts with the tropopause temperatures, and then it can force cold air. It forces the stratospheric warming here over these regions will force away from the polar regions the Arctic air and the polar vortex in the troposphere where we live. There's the layer below that. So that's the idea. We just don't know. It's too far away to really speculate if this is going to happen. So if you looked at my long-range forecast on Friday, I had a lot of speculation about how a lot of uncertainty, how the second half of December was going to work out, because we don't know what's going to happen with this. If this does help us, it would be the second half of December. It takes a while. Just because you see this happen, oh, it's December 3rd, December 3rd. No. That's what's going on in the stratosphere. It takes 10 to 14 days for it to down well. okay, or down, to propagate downward into the troposphere. There's no guarantee it does that. There's no guarantee. Do I think it does it? Probably, but does it affect here? We don't know that yet. We don't know if this is going to work. So if you're seeing stuff out there with the sudden stratospheric warming, SSWE, just, take notice to it, but just don't give it much hope just yet. We'll look at this in future videos. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I wanted to make sure I mentioned it because some people are already throwing that out there. Like, oh, big sudden stratospheric warming event coming. We're going to get bitterly cold in December. Could we? Sure. That would be later in December, though, if that were to happen. We'll keep that in the back, kind of on the back burner for now. Just keep that in the back of your mind. That's all you need to do. Now, we're looking at the the winter storm signal. This is the final thing here. And you see this is starting off between the 5th and the 9th. This is our period that we have highlighted. This is when the cold air is in here. Okay, you have one storm leaving. That's the second storm. And then we drive a couple days. And then you get these little, look, these is all indicating that there could be wintry weather involved here during that week. So the GFS ensembles are already picking up on that. It's not going to be a huge signal because this is a blend of 20 autos, okay? But they are picking up on that week, hey, we might have something, okay? The GFS operational doing the same thing. It doesn't, it's during I'm just showing you that during that week we had the signal before any of these models came in range. And now they're starting to show some things. Not very big, and it doesn't have to be. Winter storm signal doesn't have to be huge. So the up and down temperatures will become more consistently colder and colder after December 2nd, after that storm system moves through. Winter starts off with slightly above average snowfall December, could be busy afterwards. I'm still holding that. I think we are going to have a busier than average December. It just might. I don't know if it's a blockbuster necessarily, but I don't think it is. But it doesn't take much to go slightly above average for the month of December across our region. We still have that winter storm signal in the December 5th through 9th period. Again, this does not have to be a huge storm. It could be a storm that drops, 2 to 4, 3 to 6, that kind of thing, and you might get a couple of those. Maybe not necessarily just here. This is our first one we're outlining, because beyond that, it's kind of like guessing. Okay? I just like this signal with the teleconnections in place at that time for something to occur, maybe multiple things to occur. And it could be back-to-back clippers that give you, 1 to 3 inch snowfall. It could be, or it could be something bigger. We don't know that yet, but there is definitely an apparent signal during that period, which we'll continue to monitor over the next couple of weeks. And there's different methodology I get to coming up with these dates. These aren't just like, ooh, look, this sounds good. Okay? So there's a method to my madness here. But just watch this period. I think we have an opportunity there. This system that comes in the 1st and the 2nd might have some wintry aspects to it, kind of like what's going on this morning, but I think this is your better period from that point going forward. We do want to mention the My Pocket Meteorologist alerts and premium form. If you don't have the alerts yet, you're waiting till we have wintry storm threats, and that's fine. They're coming very shortly. You don't have much time before we will start needing these alerts a little more often. We did send them to select areas yesterday for the threat this morning, and last night the icing and then the snow. Those areas got their alerts last night for those subscribed, and we have the premium forum discussions. We're going to get hot and heavy into these, especially when we get some storms coming in. As far as the discussions and ahead of time, those are not done publicly. I kind of touch about it, very broadly in the daily forecast videos, but this goes into a lot of detail and model analysis. Gives us a far in advance look at what's coming. And, we'll take a look at all these storms one by one coming in, and it's going to be throughout the winter, so you can join the premium forum to do that. The My Pocket Meteorologist text alerts, though, make sure you have those in place because you're going to need them very shortly. Click on this image below the video on this page. It'll take you right to the My Pocket Meteorologist sign-up page where you can sign up for your alerts and or the premium forum. I'm EPAWA meteorologist Bobby Marchis. That is this edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, November 24th. Have a great week.